I sat perfectly still in the stern of the fishing boat, watching my grandson's hired killer check the depth finder for the third time in 10 minutes. The October waters of Desolation Sound were dark as ink, and we were a good 40 kilometers from the nearest dock, cold enough that if I went overboard, hypothermia would take me in under 20 minutes. That was the plan, anyway. Marcus, the fishing guide my grandson had specifically requested, kept glancing at his watch. 11:47 a.m. 13 minutes until the accident was scheduled to happen. I knew because I'd read the text messages. Let me back up. 3 weeks ago, I was packing for what I thought was a thoughtful gift from my only grandson. Thomas had always been my favorite, if I'm being honest. After my son died in a car accident 12 years ago, I'd raised Thomas myself from age 15, put him through university, helped him start his accounting firm. When he married Rebecca 2 years ago, I'd given them the down payment for their house in West Vancouver. $200,000. A gift, not a loan. So when Thomas suggested I take a week at a fishing lodge in Desolation Sound, all expenses paid, I was touched. "You work too hard, Granddad," he'd said over dinner at their place. "You deserve a proper break. Sometime in nature. I've already booked everything." Rebecca had smiled that perfect smile of hers. "We just want you to relax and enjoy yourself. You've done so much for us." I should have questioned why they were being so generous. I had $3 million in assets, the house in Point Grey, the investment portfolio, the pension from my 30 years as a structural engineer. Thomas and Rebecca lived well, but they were mortgaged to the hilt. The kind of lifestyle that looks impressive but bleeds you dry. The day before I was supposed to leave, I'd stopped by their house to drop off some documents Thomas had asked me to review. Nobody answered the door, but I had a key. I let myself in, calling out. No response. They must have stepped out. Thomas's laptop was open on the kitchen counter. I wasn't trying to snoop, but a notification popped up as I walked past. A text message from Rebecca to Thomas. Marcus confirmed everything. Noon on Thursday. Cold water, no witnesses. Make sure he takes the solo charter like you suggested. My blood went cold. I stood there, staring at the screen. Then another message appeared. Thomas's reply. "And you're absolutely sure he won't suspect anything? The guide knows what to do?" Rebecca. "He's getting $25,000 cash. He'll make sure your grandfather goes overboard during the fight with a big fish. Everyone will think he stood up and lost his balance. Happens all the time with elderly fishermen. The insurance will pay out within weeks." I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't get air into my lungs. My grandson, the boy I'd raised as my own son, was planning to murder me for the insurance money. I took photos of the conversation with my phone. Then I scrolled back. There were weeks of messages, planning, discussing how the trust funds worked, how they needed the money before Christmas because their mortgage was in arrears, how I was old anyway, and it would be merciful compared to watching me decline. I left the house without leaving the documents, drove straight home, sat in my study for 3 hours, just staring at the photos on my phone. That night, I called my lawyer, Richard Pemberton. We'd known each other for 40 years. I told him everything. "Don't go on the trip," he said immediately. "Change your will, cut them out, report this to the police." "They'll deny everything," I said. "Delete the messages. Say, I misunderstood, and what actual crime have they committed? Conspiracy to commit murder based on text messages. They could claim it was a dark joke. Then what do you want to do?" I thought about it. "I want to go on the trip." "James? That's insane." "Hear me out," I said. "If I don't go, we tip them off that I know. They'll just wait and try again later. Or worse, they'll find another way. But if I go, and I'm prepared, I can get them on recording, catch them in the act, give the police everything they need for attempted murder charges." Richard was quiet for a long time. "This is incredibly dangerous. I know. You'd need to be wired. You'd need backup. And you'd need a weapon, James, if things go sideways. I'll handle it." We spent the next 2 weeks planning. Richard contacted a private investigator he trusted, a former RCMP officer named Sarah Chen. She set me up with a recording device disguised as a regular fishing watch. Waterproof. Continuous recording. Battery life of 48 hours. Everything would upload to a secure cloud server in real time, via satellite connection. I also bought a satellite phone, which I hid in a waterproof bag inside my tackle box. And though I'd never been much for firearms, I purchased a small handgun and got my possession and acquisition license, rushed through Richard's connections. The gun went into the same waterproof bag. If Marcus tried to kill me, I'd defend myself. Sarah ran a background check on Marcus Thornton, the fishing guide. 34 years old. Criminal record for assault, 5 years ago. Restraining order from an ex-girlfriend. Gambling debts totaling nearly $60,000. Perfect target for bribery. He's desperate, Sarah told me over coffee. Your grandson chose well. This guy would absolutely take money to kill someone. I felt sick the day of the trip arrived. Thomas drove me to the dock in Lund himself, helped me load my gear onto the boat, hugged me. Enjoy yourself, Granddad, he said. You deserve this. I looked into his eyes, my son's eyes, and saw nothing but warm affection. If I didn't know better, I'd never suspect. That's what hurt the most. How good he was at lying. Thank you, Thomas. This means a lot. Call me when you get back. I want to hear all about the big ones you caught. Marcus met us at the boat, a solid-looking 28-foot aluminum fishing charter. He had that rough, outdoorsy look, weathered face, powerful build, the kind of man who could easily overpower someone my age. James, good to meet you, he said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm. Your grandson's told me a lot about you. All good things, I hope. Of course. He said you're a serious fisherman, that you want to try for some big lingcod. That's right. Thomas clapped me on the shoulder. Marcus here is the best guide in Desolation Sound. He'll take good care of you. Marcus smiled. That's my job. We departed at 8 a.m. The first 3 hours were normal. Pleasant, even. Marcus was knowledgeable about the area, pointed out sea lions and eagles. We caught a few small rockfish. He seemed professional, but I noticed things. The way he kept checking his phone, the way he steered us farther and farther from other boats. By 11:30, we were completely alone in a narrow channel between two mountainous islands. No cell service out here for regular phones. No other vessels in sight. Marcus cut the engine. This is a good spot for lingcod, he said. Deep water, rocky bottom. You'll want to use that heavy rod over there. He rigged up a large jig with a heavy weight, showed me how to drop it down. These fish fight hard, he explained. When you feel a bite, you'll need to set the hook aggressively. Might mean standing up for leverage. There it was, the setup. Get me standing in a moving boat over deep, cold water. Actually, Marcus, I said carefully, I prefer to stay seated when I fish. Old habit. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance? Sure. But if you get a big one, you might not have a choice. They'll pull you right out of your seat. I lowered the jig into the water. The watch on my wrist was recording everything. My heart was hammering. We fished in silence for 10 minutes. Then Marcus checked his phone again. 11:52 a.m. You know, he said conversationally, your grandson really cares about you. Does he? Oh yeah. Talked about you a lot when we were planning this trip. Said you basically raised him after his dad died. That's true. Must be nice, having family like that. Someone who appreciates you. I didn't respond. Just kept my line in the water. Marcus moved closer. He also mentioned you're pretty well off. Good pension. Investments. Nice house. My hands tightened on the rod. I've been fortunate. Yeah, he said you've been generous with him too. Down payment on his house. That's a lot of money. He's my grandson. Still, most people don't just give away hundreds of thousands of dollars. Marcus was standing right behind me now. Makes a guy wonder what you expect in return. I turned to look at him. I don't expect anything in return. It was a gift. Huh, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. See, that's interesting, because Thomas made it sound like you're the kind of man who keeps track, who expects gratitude, loyalty. Thomas said that? Not in so many words. But I got the impression. This was it. He was working up to it, building a narrative where I was the bad guy, the controlling old man who deserved what was coming. I decided to push. Marcus, how much is my grandson paying you for this trip? The smile vanished. Standard charter rate. Why? No. I mean, how much is he paying you to kill me? The silence that followed was absolute. Even the water seemed to stop moving. Marcus stared at me, his face draining of color. What the hell are you talking about? I set down my fishing rod carefully. $25,000 in cash. To make it look like an accident. Get me to stand up while fighting a fish. Then tip me overboard into water cold enough to kill me in 20 minutes. His hand moved towards something in his jacket pocket. I pulled out the satellite phone. Already called it in, I lied. RCMP is on their way. You've got maybe 10 minutes before they arrive. You're crazy, old man. Am I? I pulled out my regular phone, showed him the photos of the text messages. These are from my grandson and his wife, planning this whole thing, including your name and the amount they're paying you. Marcus lunged for the phone. I was ready. The handgun came out of my tackle box, and I pointed it directly at his chest. Don't. He froze. Jesus Christ. Sit down, Marcus. Back of the boat. Hands where I can see them. He backed up slowly, hands raised. You actually brought a gun on a fishing charter? Seemed prudent, given someone was planning to murder me. I wasn't... Look, I don't know what you think you know, but stop talking. I kept the gun steady. My hands weren't shaking. 40 years of handling precision instruments had given me steady hands. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to start the engine and drive us back to Lund. We're going to dock, and the RCMP is going to arrest you. You're going to tell them everything about your arrangement with Thomas and Rebecca. I want a lawyer. You'll get one. After you're arrested for conspiracy to commit murder, they'll never make it stick. It's your word against mine. I held up my wrist. See this watch? It's been recording everything since we left the dock. Every word you just said. Every threat. The RCMP will have the full recording. The color drained from his face completely. You recorded me? I recorded everything. And it's already uploaded to a secure server. Even if you throw me overboard now, the evidence still exists. Marcus slumped against the side of the boat. I'm so screwed. Yes, you are. But you have one chance to reduce your sentence. Full cooperation. Tell the police everything. Testify against Thomas and Rebecca. They'll kill me. They're going to prison. They can't kill you from there. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, they came to me 6 weeks ago, said they needed help with a problem, an elderly relative who was standing in the way of an inheritance. They offered me 25 grand to make it look like an accident. And you agreed. I'm 60,000 in debt from poker games. Guys I owe are not patient people. I was desperate. So you agreed to murder someone. I told myself it was just a job. That you were old anyway. That it was quick and painless. Hypothermia. Like falling asleep. He looked at me. But you're not just some stranger. You're his grandfather. Yes. How could he do this to you? That was the question, wasn't it? I thought about Thomas as a teenager, angry and grieving after losing his father. How I'd tried to fill that void. Apparently I'd failed. Money makes people do terrible things, I said. Now start the engine. The ride back took 90 minutes. I kept the gun on Marcus the entire time, though he seemed to have given up any thoughts of fighting. He just drove, silent and defeated. When we approached the dock at Lund, there were 4 RCMP vehicles waiting. Sarah Chen had actually called them ahead of time, using the satellite upload from my watch. They'd heard everything. Marcus was arrested immediately. I handed over the gun properly, cleared and safe to one of the officers, along with my pal. They took my statement. Then they went to arrest Thomas and Rebecca. I wasn't there for that part, thank God. Richard told me later that Thomas had tried to run. Rebecca had started crying, claiming she'd been coerced. Neither strategy worked. The text messages, the recording of Marcus's confession, the money trail, it was all overwhelming. They were both charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Marcus took a plea deal 15 years in exchange for full testimony against them. At trial, 6 months later, Thomas got 25 years. Rebecca got 20. I sat through every day of the trial, watched my grandson avoid eye contact with me, heard Rebecca's lawyer argue that she'd been manipulated by Thomas, that she was a victim too. The jury didn't buy it. When the verdict was read, Thomas finally looked at me. I don't know what he expected to see. Satisfaction? Grief? I felt both and neither. Mostly, I just felt tired. The judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I stood up. When my son died 12 years ago, I said, I thought the worst thing that could happen to me had already happened. I was wrong. The worst thing was raising his son, my grandson, and doing such a poor job that he grew up thinking my life was worth $25,000 to a stranger. I sat back down. Thomas was crying now, finally. Too late. After the trial, I sold the house in Point Grey. Too many memories. I bought a smaller place in Victoria, near the ocean. Changed my will, everything goes to charity now. Established scholarships for engineering students who've lost parents. At least some good would come from all this. People ask me if I'm angry, if I hate Thomas for what he tried to do. The truth is more complicated. I'm angry, yes, betrayed, hurt beyond measure. But I also blame myself. Somewhere along the way, I'd failed to teach him the things that mattered. Gratitude, integrity, the value of human life. Or maybe I had taught him those things, and he'd simply chosen to ignore them. People have free will. We can guide them, support them, love them, but we can't control who they become. What I've learned from all this is that survival isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's the ability to keep going after everything you believed in has been shattered, to rebuild yourself from the wreckage. I'm 68 years old now. I fish sometimes, alone, in safe waters. I volunteer at the community center. I have friends for coffee on Thursdays. It's a smaller life than I had before, but it's mine. And every night, before I sleep, I'm grateful for one thing, that I trusted my instincts that day in Thomas's kitchen, that I didn't ignore what I saw on that laptop screen, that I chose to fight back instead of accepting my fate. Because the opposite of betrayal isn't the absence of it. It's the strength to survive it and the wisdom to know that some relationships, no matter how much they once meant, are beyond saving. I don't visit Thomas in prison. He's written me letters, dozens of them, apologizing, explaining, begging for forgiveness. I haven't read any of them. Richard screens them for me, in case there's legal relevance. There never is. Maybe one day I'll forgive him. Maybe. But that day isn't today, and it might not be tomorrow. Forgiveness isn't something you owe someone just because they're family. It's something you give when you're ready, if you're ever ready at all. For now, I'm focused on living. Really living, not just existing. Every sunrise over the strait feels like a gift I wasn't supposed to receive. Every conversation with a friend, every meal I cook, every book I read, they're all bonuses. Extra time I earn by being smart enough to see the trap and strong enough to survive it. The fishing guide, Marcus, he's serving his sentence up north somewhere. I heard through Richard that he's become religious in prison, found God or whatever. Writes letters to victims' advocacy groups about how guilt destroyed him. Good for him, I suppose. Doesn't change what he was willing to do. Rebecca's parents visit her regularly, Richard tells me. They still maintain she's innocent, that Thomas manipulated her. Maybe they need to believe that. Parents see what they want to see in their children. I certainly did. My friends here in Victoria don't know the full story. They know I had a falling out with my grandson, that he's in prison for something serious. They don't pry. Victoria is good that way. People respect privacy. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just gone on that trip without knowing. If I'd stood up in that boat at noon on that Thursday, felt the cold water close over my head, realized too late what was happening. Would I have fought? Or would I have let go, thinking it was just an accident, never knowing the truth? I think about the version of me that didn't stop at Thomas's house that day. The version who went on the trip innocent and trusting, who died in Desolation Sound, believing his grandson loved him. Was he happier? In those last moments, did ignorance make it easier? I'll never know, and I'm glad I don't. What I do know is this: I'm still here, still breathing, still watching the sun set over the Pacific, still making my own choices. Thomas took a lot from me. My trust, my family, my peace of mind. But he didn't take my life, and he didn't take my will to keep living it. That's something. That's enough. Most evenings, I sit on my deck with a glass of whiskey, a good single malt, because life's too short for bad liquor, and watch the boats come in. Sometimes I see fishing charters returning from the Sound, and I think about that day, about how close I came. Then I finish my drink, go inside, and make dinner. Because that's what survival looks like. Not dramatic or heroic. Just the simple act of continuing, of choosing every single day to keep going. And that, I've discovered, is the best revenge of all.